Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Financial Issues. Wonderful to be here with you today. Seth Udinski here with you this morning. I'm grateful for each of you. My friend Sam Case on the audio board, Grant Ace on the TriCaster. Having a good time this morning and grateful for each of you joining us. Sam, we ready to rock and roll once again, brother? It's going to be fun.
Oh, as always, I'm a rock star today,
I'm excited.
man.
I'm excited. And we got a busy show today. We've got several guests, several beloved guests in the FISM family. You know and love these guys. Dan Steiner of PreBorn is going to join me later, bringing us up to speed on what Trump is doing to reverse Biden-era abortion policies while also trying to defund Planned Parenthood. I will take a heavy dose of both of those, please. That is awesome.
2 scoops of defunding Planned Parenthood, please.
Absolutely. Also,
and sprinkles.
Yep, that's right. And Twila Brase of CCH Freedom also is going to join me later. We're going to analyze Trump's efforts to regulate drug prices. That'll be an interesting conversation. You don't want to miss that. If you've got questions for either Dan or Twila, Dan will be coming on with me in the next segment. Twila will be in segment 3, so a little more time to ask questions for Twila. So get those into the chat, folks, if you want those questions answered. Also, Trump laid the lumber on JPMorgan and Bank of America yesterday. My goodness. This was, concerning their rumored debanking practices. We'll see how this played out in just a moment. But it's great to have each of you today. I'm so thankful to be able to do the show once again. It's an honor to do it every day. I do hope if you're not a partner with us, you would consider becoming one. Partners, please check out yesterday's partner commentary. Very, very good. Really a great read, a great understanding of kind of what's happening right now in terms of the markets and kind of maybe what you need to do if you're building out your portfolio, if you're starting a new portfolio. There's some great practical insight there for you. Also, make sure you act on last night's sell alert. We did issue a sell alert of UT49. I just got the text alert this morning. If you got the text alert, let us know. If you didn't, let us know as well, and we can help you out with that. This company sadly is being bought out by a non-biblically responsible company, so we need to part ways with them to keep our portfolios God-honoring. So please do that when you have the chance. All right, Sam, let's kick it off here with this debanking silliness. So Trump really, once again, he laid the wood on JPMorgan and Bank of America yesterday.
Gave him a shellacking, man.
How did this play out here?
So this happened on CNBC yesterday. Donald Trump was on Squawk Box, where he called out JPMorgan and Bank of America, after which both of their shares slipped quite a bit on Tuesday after President Trump said both of those major banks rejected him as a customer. Here's a clip of him talking about that.
JPMorgan Chase, I had hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. I could see if they want to, if they want to do something bad because you don't have any money and you defaulted and they took people out. But I'll give you me as an example. I had hundreds of millions. I had many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with cash, and they told me, "I'm sorry, sir, we can't have you. You have 20 days to get out." I said, "You got to be kidding. I've been with you for 35, 40 years. They said, and I mean, I had all this. I didn't know what to do with it. Then what happens is I call up Bank of America routinely, because when I was president, this was after I got out, by the way, I call up Bank of America routinely, and I speak to him, and I speak to a couple of people, and they have zero interest.
It's funny, Seth, I just noticed if you're watching on the screen, you would have seen JPMorgan and Bank of America stocks going down in real time while he's talking. It's very amusing.
Yeah, this was before the markets opened yesterday, right? But it was on Squawk Box.
Yeah, exactly.
As it's happening.
Yeah,
crazy
it's great
stuff.
Yeah, so basically what he was saying there was that JPMorgan canceled his account. They gave him 20 days to get rid of all this money, millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So he thought, well, I'm going to go to Bank of America, and Bank of America hung up the phone. They said, yeah, not so much, Mr. President. Now, Trump is now preparing an executive order that would punish banks like these two with fines and other disciplinary actions for debanking customers. And interestingly enough, Seth, it appears JPMorgan's kind of on board with this. They released a statement denying that they debank people for political reasons, but at the same time saying that regulatory change is, quote, desperately needed. They said, quote, "We commend the White House for addressing this issue and look forward to working with them to get this right." Now, it also should be noted that banking groups for some time have been complaining about this practice. They say that debanking is really not their fault. Instead, they say it's caused by excess government regulation, especially an FDIC rule known as reputational risk. And that's a rule that can cause banks to be forced, basically, to drop controversial customers or businesses because it could harm the bank's reputation. It's a real mushmouth phrase, and it's led to really controversial practices in banking. Under the FDIC, Trump has said that it's working to remove reputational risk as part of its evaluational practices.
Sam, thanks for bringing that up to us. You know, debanking can be it can be a scary thing for sure. I'd love to try to get Nick Vujicic back on the show. I'm going to try to get him on the show in the next several days or so. We had Nick on several months ago, and he shared his story. Of course, he's a very famous Christian author, speaker. He does not have arms or legs, and so that's a part of his testimony. But another part of his testimony recently is that he was debanked for being conservative, and so he actually ended up starting his own kind of online bank. I believe it's pro-life fintech, if I'm correct.
Yep, that's right.
But,
that's what it's called.
I'd love to get him on, Sam, because I think he'd be able to share some really good things for this. But folks, notice a couple things here. JPMorgan, to its credit, there's not really much else that they can say other than, yeah, we agree this is bad and we're going to try to. But what they said in their statement, they don't close accounts for political reasons. At the same time, we commend the White House for looking into the issue and agree regulatory change is necessary. Which one is it? I mean, I don't think Trump would lie about this, Sam. I think this probably happened.
I think what they're saying is, yes, people do get debanked, but they're saying it's not exactly for political reasons.
Yeah.
It's more because of this reputational risk thing, which backdoor causes conservatives to get debanked, but it's more for that.
Right. So it's interesting stuff for sure. I wonder if JPMorgan probably did debank conservatives, has done so in the past. Maybe it was convenient in the last administration. Maybe it's not so convenient now. Either way, I'm glad that they're willing to work with the White House. And I'm
reading that statement. I'm thinking they're basically agreeing without saying the quiet part out loud.
Exactly. That's really what it kind of seems like. So, Sam, I think this is a great use of governmental power if the president does this. There are probably some who might lean more libertarian who would say the president should stay out of it and just let banks do what they want to do.
I think that this is libertarian, though. Yeah. This is restricting government power because the banks are saying the only reason we're debanking people is because the government's breathing down our neck.
That's right. Exactly. Yep, exactly. So let banks be able to freely have anyone bank with them regardless of their political opinion. I think it's great stuff. So good to see that from the president. Sam, elsewhere, I found this kind of interesting. Grocery costs appear to be getting out of hand. I don't think this is a surprise for anyone, but what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, right. You go to the grocery store at all, Seth? You ever have to eat?
I do, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's something you might be aware
folks,
of.
I don't know if you want to know. Listen, the elites don't want you to know this, but food costs money, and lately it's cost a lot of money.
Quite a bit, actually. Yeah, according to a new AP NORC poll, about half of all Americans now say the cost of groceries is a major source of stress. Well, at the same time, another third say it's at least a minor source of their stress. So all told, you add those numbers together, about 85% of Americans are feeling at least somewhat stressed out by the price of groceries. And that's not to mention other financial stressors like housing costs or the amount of money in the bank. By the way, the Bureau of Labor Statistics this May says the average American household spends about $6,000 a year on groceries. That's about $500 a month.
Sam, I believe it. I'll say this personally. I'll pull back the hood a little bit, folks. The single most stressful item on mine and Megan's budget each month is the cost of food. I'm tempted to call Megan up live on the show, but I don't think she would like that very much and ask her, hey, how much do we spend on food? I think we probably will exceed that average with a family of 5. And there are 3 young kids, and it's not like we're, gorging ourselves and eating a lot of food. It's just food costs expensive. I think we're fortunate if we get a month where our food budget is less than that $500 average. And that's with trying to limit eating out or not eating out at all. But still, listen, grocery costs are expensive, especially the healthy stuff, especially good meat, good dairy, products, all that stuff. It can get really expensive.
And this is a big problem for Donald Trump. I was talking to my parents about this and, they really like Donald Trump. And my mom said, there's one thing that he needs to fix, and it's these grocery prices. And it's getting to the point where I almost don't care about the other stuff he's doing. I want these costs to come down because it's killing me.
That's right, man. And that's the key, Sam. I think we got to remember this. That's what Trump ran on. So he's going to have to address it at some point. He's going to have to address it, and not just in AO. We're getting there, but actually seriously addressing that issue. Folks, this brings up something that I think is kind of fascinating here. I'm speaking to myself here. Older generations, when young folks talk about how tough finances are for them, my first response, and I am a millennial, my first response is to say, just deal with it. Stop being such a whiner. But maybe we should consider a gracious response, because the younger generations are growing up with ridiculously expensive things all around. Houses are ridiculously expensive. Groceries are ridiculously expensive. I need to learn this, because I'm perhaps the hardest millennial on millennials that I know. I'm really hard on my own generation. But it is true. I think it's good for us to be gracious and also to look for ways that we can paint a positive vision for the upcoming generation here and maybe even help them achieve it. That's where generosity comes into play. That's where teaching them how to invest well and be biblically responsible comes into play also. Well, folks, Dan Steiner is going to join us next. I'm looking forward to that conversation on financial issues. Say hello if you're in the chat. We'll make sure to give you a shout out. More financial issues right after this break.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Bring back free speech to America.
Zuckerberg drops a bombshell, reversing Meta's content moderation policies.
I started building social media to give people a voice. It's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram.
Times are changing, and it's the everyday American who is pushing the changes.
People have had enough of what these companies are doing.
Money talks. So why not have it represent your values? Get started at financialissues.org.
Through the ministry of PreBorn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the PreBorn banner.
Folks, welcome back. Good to be here on Financial Issues with each and every one of you. I've got a very special guest joining me on the program today, my friend Dan Steiner. Dan is the founder and president of PreBorn. PreBorn in the business of saving babies and bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ to mothers and fathers. It has been our honor at Financial Issues to partner alongside PreBorn for many, many years and to continue fighting the good fight with them. Dan, welcome back, brother. It's a delight to have you today.
Great to be here. Feels like home, Seth. Good morning.
Amen. Thank you, brother. You know, Dan, there's a lot of talk right now about the fight for life, and I think a lot of good things happening. What I'd like to begin here is a news report that I heard recently about the Trump administration reversing several Biden-era policies, one of which was the authorization of VA hospitals to perform abortions. We're seeing a lot of reversals like this, where there seems to be a return to a more pro-life center. What do you make of all of this? How should we think about this?
Well, with gratitude to the boss of PreBorn, which is the Shepherd King back here, Jesus, who put President Trump in office, and he is the most pro-life president, personally pro-life. I know this for a fact. And so he's enacting the things that the deep state Biden and Obama administration put in place, such as the VA authorization. They reversed it. It's not legal for the VA to do that, you know, to pay for veteran hospitals to do abortions, to pay for servicemen to fly to abortion clinics. none of that's supposed to be paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. And thankfully, the Trump administration is inch by inch, and the great cabinet he has appointed and the White House Faith Office that's put in place, all of which are Christian people that are surrounding his ear with conservative and Christian principles. Trump is a Christian. He, especially after Butler, gives credit to God. And by the way, Seth, did you know that Trump wasn't the only president that was shot?
No. Interesting.
It's a fact, yeah. There's another president that was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, George Washington, non-fatally.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of an historical point, but it was a historical point in Trump's life. It really attenuated his focus on the fact that he's there by God's appointment and he's making the most of it. So we're thankful for that. The one thing that we need to still see come out of the administration is, and you guys can call your senators and congressmen and everybody else you know, let's enforce the Comstock Act, which says that you cannot mail abortifacients through the U.S. Postal Service. That's standing law, and it's not being enforced, and obviously it's compromising pro-life states who have outlawed abortion, and yet deep state abortion doctors are mailing abortion pills into places like Texas and Mississippi, and like from California, where the king of abortion, Governor Newsom, has put shield laws in place to protect them from violating the law and from being prosecuted. And so the war is out there, thicker than ever. But I would say for sure, as what you cited with that particular piece of legislative change, we're making great headway. I'm very thankful.
Yeah, it sure seems like it, Dan, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Love that connection you made with George Washington, too. Two influential presidents, both of them, I believe, called by God for the time that they were in. And I would agree with you. Both men, I believe, are counted among the saints. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And certainly seeing that, you brought up Trump being one of the most pro-life presidents that we've ever seen. I happen to agree with you on that. Some people will disagree. Some people will say, well, he's personally pro-choice and all that stuff. But I have to tell them, look at the actions. Look at what this man has done in word and deed, not just word. I don't want someone in the office who's going to say, yeah, I'm personally pro-life, but we got to figure this thing out. No, he has enacted these things, and it's wonderful to have that, Dan. And I would also say thank you for bringing up what's going on with those mail-in abortions as well. Tell our listeners one more time, what do we need to do? Contacting our local officials. What else can we do?
Well, certainly pray. God is sovereign over everything, and so he can turn this thing back in a moment. Women are being at least 65% of abortions in America are being actuated through the internet. The biggest abortionist no longer is Planned Parenthood, but it's the internet.
Yeah.
And they're destroying their babies, birthing their babies, their dead babies on their bathroom floor and their toilets across America. It's devastating the hearts of American women. And, so anyone of influence, in the government could put pressure on RFK and McCary to make America healthy again by not aborting women in their bathrooms, and we found out, sadly, in May that there was a longitudinal study done since 2017 that just came out. So you have all those years, 8 years, of insurance claims, not pro-life hyperbole or propaganda, but insurance claims of women that took the abortion pill and had hospitalization and insurance claims on this. And 11% of them, 11% of women that take this drug, mifepristone, end up hospitalized, severe complications. And so this is a travesty on the health of American women. And any other drug that they found out empirically that it had that kind of effect on would be pulled immediately off the market, but this has not, and they're not doing anything about it. Trump is himself personally pro-life. His wife, Melania, is personally not, and openly about it. So that's not a great thing either. but they agree to disagree is my understanding of it. So this is the thing that PreBorn is trying to combat on an hour-by-hour basis on the internet, competing with the abortion pill sites and Planned Parenthood, trying to get the women into our clinics and see ultrasound sponsored by the many listeners of Financial Issues. And here in the month of May, we underwrote a lot of ultrasound sessions, dozens. And we're thankful that, that still is the best defense we have for these babies, is to let their mothers see the reality of the life inside of them. That heartbeat, Seth, is the thing that changes the mind even more than the picture. Heartbeat is worth more than 1,000 words in this case, picture. And I've actually been told that there's a gynecological response in a woman when she hears her baby's heartbeat. There's an endocrine response. So it's cool.
Dan, it really is cool. I have a 4.5-month-old son now, and every time I look at his fist, sometimes I'll look at his fist and I'll think, that's the size of his heart. That little heart has been beating now for over a year, because it was beating when he was in the womb for 9 months. Now he's been out of it for over 4. It's just amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing. Yeah. Christians need to be the ones leading the fight to save and protect these little ones here, Dan. One of the foes that you guys continually fight against, and we stand with you, is Planned Parenthood. And I was so incredibly excited. In fact, the part about the big, beautiful bill that excited me the most was the promise that some form of funding would be slashed from Planned Parenthood. I was originally told it might be 10 years slashed, then only 1 year. I'll take whatever I can get, Dan. But what is the latest news on your radar regarding Planned Parenthood being defunded? Are we seeing Planned Parenthood facilities getting closed? What can you tell us about this?
Planned Parenthood is, in fact, closing. I think they closed like 2 or 3 in Louisiana here recently, are going to. But that's not because of the big, beautiful bill. Big, beautiful bill is hamstrung. In a very half-hearted effort, they stopped them from receiving Medicaid funding, which is about $750 million. And not just Planned Parenthood, but any abortion provider that provides over $800,000 worth of abortion services is prevented from receiving any Medicaid funding. Now, that's devastating for them and is what should be done. But it was tied up in court, still tied up in court. And, we're several months into it now. So the clock's ticking. We're losing ground on this thing. Yeah. I think we need to find out which senators were the ones that changed that to 1 year, which congressmen are the ones that suggested that, because that's, a compromise big time. Politics is the art of compromise by definition anyway. So it's a very difficult thing to get anything that rings true through, even with a great administration like we've got. But we're thankful, as you said, for anything that we do have. That Medicaid defunding hasn't taken place yet. It's tied up, in contestation by the courts. And so here we are with, we'll have to see where it all lands, but
for
it's
sure. And Dan, that brings to mind. So the way that Planned Parenthood gets funded, folks, I don't know if you know this, but it's part of it is government funding. The other part of it is donor funding. We don't have as much control over the government funding, Dan, but we do have a lot of control over the donor funding. And that's where PreBorn comes in. That is why, folks, you need to consider using your donor dollars to help PreBorn. PreBorn is in this fight. Dan, it's such an honor to stand with you guys in this. And as we're coming to the end of our interview here, can you just share with our listeners how we can pray for and support PreBorn in your success? I know you guys are growing. You guys are fighting back against this darkness. How can we come alongside you?
Yeah, you guys, please do pray. I know that the audience listening today for Financial Issues are the bedrock, not only of Financial Issues, but of PreBorn's support base. You guys are. Thanks to Dan Steiner. We wouldn't be on literally every Christian radio program and conservative influencer in America were it not for Dan and Yvonne Celia giving Valerie that insight that, hey, this, reaches a lot of people. And so we're appealing to the conscience of the American Christian and conservative to do something about this. And the best thing you can do, as you suggested, is to pray, particularly that we can get around the Google algorithms and that we can reach more and more women online and get them into our clinics. We've got a battery of nurses on all time zones that are talking to these girls, helping them to get into the clinics. We know that if a nurse talks to her, that it makes it 30% greater that she will choose life and go into the clinic and make the appointment. And so we're making progress. Yeah. Thankful for the listeners of Financial Issues, for sure.
Well, Dan, we're thankful for you, brother, and it's an honor to stand with you. Thank you for joining me on the show today and bringing us up to speed on what's going on. Folks, if you want to learn more about the great work PreBorn does, check them out at PreBorn.com. You can also call them right now. You can dial pound 250 and just say keyword baby, pound 250, keyword baby. Dan Steiner, my friend, the founder of PreBorn, so grateful to have you on, brother. I look forward to the next time that we get to do it. We got more financial issues coming up, folks. If you have to leave us, hope you have a great day, but I hope you'll stick with us. Twila Brase up next on Financial Issues. See you then.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. I Googled places to abort. We drive there, and as soon as we get there, I open the door, and the first thing that I see is a bunch of Bible verses in the walls. They gave me a little counseling session, they gave me the pregnancy test again, and they do an ultrasound. And that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We decided with my boyfriend at the time, which is now my husband, to continue the pregnancy together. We started coming to the classes, doing our homework, getting counseling together. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of PreBorn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. Good to be here with you this morning. The market's just open, but we'll take a look at those in about 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes, because I have a special guest joining me on the show today. You know her and love her, Twila Brase, our friend from CCH Freedom. She's the president and co-founder of CCH Freedom. You can learn more about what CCH Freedom does at cchfreedom.org. So check that out there. Twila, always a pleasure to have you. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure. Twila, let's start. Give us your take on President Trump's recent order. So he sent an order to drug companies to cut prices within 60 days. This was about a week ago, or now about 50 days from now or so. What do you make of this in general?
Well, I mean, I know that he's dealing with an issue that the public really cares about. Like when I give presentations and I say, what do you dislike most about the healthcare system? One of the things that always pops up is drug prices.
Yeah.
And of course, they are at the height that they are because they have third-party payment, and that includes government payment for drugs. Now, what Trump is trying to do here is to sort of bully them into lowering their prices to the price that they sell it to other countries. But I would like, and I think the prices can definitely be lower, right? But the one thing about the other countries to know about is, like in Canada, whereas we might have a boatload of options of drugs, I know that we had a Canadian speaker who came in and talked about in Canada for this one class of drugs, there were only 8. And there was no option except if you wanted to go to another country to get another medication, that if you could get it on your own, unless you went to that other country, found a provider in that country, and then got the medication in that country. So you have to consider the fact that the other countries use, because they're government programs, right? So they just say, well, we're only going to pay this much. And so, how many drugs can we get, or which drugs can we get for that price? And okay, well, we're just not going to have any of the other drugs. Now, it is a fact that there's a lot of drugs that probably we don't need. And the other thing is, with what the FDA says to a drug manufacturer, if it's too close to a drug we already have, the FDA says we won't approve it because we don't need another drug like that. But what they're really doing is avoiding or stopping the competitive forces. Because if you've got two companies making kind of the same drug, I mean, why wouldn't you approve the second drug so that you could actually have competition and bring the prices down? I think that what Trump is doing here is imposing price controls, or trying to impose price controls and do whatever he can at the federal level to do that. But whether he'll accomplish it or not, I don't know. And if he does accomplish it, it'll be temporary. I think, he should look at more permanent ways, like actually changing what happens at the FDA, changing how long it takes for a drug to make it through, changing things like allowing similar drugs to just be approved. Let them compete with each other. There are other ways to bring the prices down. And of course, moving to a more cash-based system and real health insurance rather than letting all of the third parties be in the middle, which raises all the prices, would be better too. So,
absolutely,
we want to get everybody out of Medicare, or at least open the door to let them out as the rationing, increases within the program, and they have nowhere else to go. I mean, it's like an age discrimination law. Medicare is age discrimination. And in 8 years, in 2033, the Medicare trustees say it will only be able to pay 89% of its bills. And of course, it will pay 100% of its bills, but it will decrease what it will pay. And that means fewer doctors, fewer procedures, fewer medications, fewer everything. We've got to let people out. And then, of course, the drug companies are really going to have to compete on value, because people will make decisions based on their own money, particularly if they have real health insurance, which we want to give them. And then they'll have to really compete, and that will bring the prices down. Now, I think this is just a Trump version of price control with a good intention, but still a price control.
Twila, that makes a lot of sense. And that was something that was concerning to me about it also, is it seems like price control, the alarm bells in my mind going off of government overreach into the free market. I'm hopeful because I trust in who Trump is. But yeah, there was a part of me that was a little bit skittish about this as well. What I'm really glad that you just brought up is the real issue, because the real issue does seem to be all these nonsense third parties involved, when we need to get people back on what you described as real health insurance. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so real health insurance. Now, the group that I'm talking to here on your broadcast, probably some of them actually remember when the health insurance company sent them or their family a check, to cover the cost of care. And so this indemnity insurance, medical indemnity insurance, is real insurance. It's a contract between you and the insurer. It's not a contract at all with the hospital. There's no prior authorization. There's no third-party retroactive utilization review. All these things, all these third parties that are in there are because we have managed care, which is the health plan. We have government, which acts as sort of a version of a health plan, right? And so these third parties in the middle who say, well, we'll decide whether you can and cannot have what the doctor ordered, but with real health insurance, it's a contract between you and the insurer. And if the doctor orders it, the insurer pays you. And then you decide what doctor to go to, what hospital to choose, what other kind of facilities to choose. And you're in control, and all the prices have to come down to being in your favor. Because they're going to compete for individuals, and they're going to, and instead of like 5 or 7 or 8 major insurance companies around the country.
Twila, that's great, and I'm so glad that you guys are in the front lines fighting for this. That's awesome. You'd mentioned Medicare. Twila, there's several anniversaries that we are celebrating around this time of year. Well, let me say this. I should say one of them is a celebration because it's the anniversary of CCH Freedom's founding, but the other one is the anniversary of Medicare. The 60th anniversary of Medicare was on July 30th. Not as much of a celebration with that one, in my opinion, Twila. Might be a controversial take. I personally am quite anti-Medicare. It feels like socialist health care to me. What do you make of this government program that's now 6 decades in and counting, and its days might be numbered, as you just referenced? What do you make of this?
Well, they'll keep that thing alive as long as possible, even though it doesn't provide the care, and even though you're trapped in it, they'll keep it as long alive as long as politically possible, right? But I think the thing to know about Medicare is its history, and it gives you some idea of what it is. So its history is that the Democrat labor unions way back when really wanted this. President Truman was the first person to say we needed national health care. Kennedy was going to put it in because the unions wanted it. And then he talked to the American Medical Association, who said to him, all the doctors will eventually come under control of the government. This is a really bad idea. So he had decided that no, there wasn't going to be any Medicare. And then when he was assassinated, then Johnson came after him and said, we're going to do this on behalf of the martyred president. Yeah. So Kennedy had said, no, it was a bad idea, but Johnson wanted it and used President Kennedy as a way to get it through. So this was strategery of a terrible kind. And of course, now we know that all of the doctors are indeed under control of the government and what the government decides, and government protocols and government payments. And the fact that, for instance, the government, I can't remember the exact statistics, but they put in this relative value system, 16, 18 years ago or something. And it's a way to pay doctors according to value units of their care. And the price of that has been going down, down, down as inflation and costs have been going up, up, and up. And so I think it's something like they're only $1.37 or $1.73 more than they were making 18 years ago per unit. And so this is when you're losing your doctors, and when doctors say no to Medicare, this is one of the reasons why. And eventually Medicare patients aren't going to get hardly a doctor at all. They're going to get the non-physicians. They're going to get the PAs and the NPs and people who don't have medical training and are not physicians. And they're not going to get they might get the 5-year hip replacement rather than the 15-year hip replacement, just like everything to cut the costs. So I think that, the time for Medicare is over for the future. And everybody who's dependent on it today should be taking care of it because they've been promised it and because they're dependent on it now. But there's so many young people and even middle-aged people who are still working who could do really well getting a real health insurance policy, a medical indemnity policy between them and the insurer, and then they have the cash and the power in hand.
It's awesome, Twila. Hey, give us a sense real quickly here. The resources you have a lot of them on Medicare at CCH Freedom. How can our listeners best utilize these?
Well, I would particularly point everybody to our Medicare How-To Guide, which came out last October and which is going to be really useful into the Medicare enrollment period that is coming up. But also for anybody who's in Medicare, do you want to be in the program you're in? If you're in Medicare Advantage and you're still healthy, now might be the time to get out. And in the Medicare How-To Guide, we tell you why and how. And so I have heard from people that it has made their choice about Medicare very easy. And so I would really encourage people to get that. And you can find it, on our homepage on the slider on top that goes around, right? Yep. You can find it there, and you can also just find another link further down on the homepage on Medicare.
That's awesome. Folks, all that can be found at cchfreedom.org. Again, cchfreedom.org. Twila, I appreciate you so much. I know our listeners do as well. Thank you for joining me as always and for the great work that you guys do to fight for our health freedoms over at CCH Freedom. We'll be back, folks, with more financial issues coming up after this break. Stick with us.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
PreBorn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant. My family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She offered to get me an ultrasound. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep him.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of PreBorn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Hey, thanks for joining us here, folks, on Financial Issues. Quickly wanted to wrap up. Twila has some great resources at cchfreedom.org. That guide to Medicare, if you go to their homepage, cchfreedom.org, Twila mentioned that slider that's at kind of the top middle of the page there. So Medicare is one of those. There's another slider as well that CCH Freedom's actually hosting a gala in their Minneapolis area campuses called Escaping the Medical Matrix. If you're interested in that, check that out. You can go to cchfreedom.org, and there's a registration button there. Again, that's September 18th at 6 o'clock p.m. for anyone who's interested. So you can check that out today. Again, cchfreedom.org. Good stuff there. Always love having Twila on.
It's a great interview. Yeah. I mean, reminding us that even Donald Trump can sometimes say those scary words. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
That's right. That's right. And listen, I think Trump's done a great job cohesively. But Sam, you're exactly right. Folks, listen. If you went through your history classes and did not leave with some kind of distrust of the U.S. government, then you probably missed something. There's a general distrust of our government that I think is good to have. I think that's actually wisdom, because on a certain level, listen, these are sinful human beings. The best of them, the Christians, still sinful human beings. There's always the trap of power and influence and money, and working in the government provides an opportunity for all three of those, as we talked about yesterday, Sam, with the perhaps lucrative investing career that you can get by being in the government as well. It's always good to just have a little bit of healthy distrust. I'm not saying that you go crazy, and I'm certainly not saying that you disrespect your governmental leaders whom God put in charge of you. I think it's using wisdom. I think it's using wisdom to say, you know what? The people in charge, they are not God. And I will not treat them like God. I'm not going to treat them as my Savior to provide every need for me. I have a Savior. His name's Jesus Christ. And I also have a God-given intellect and an ability to be able to work hard and provide a good life for myself with investing, with working hard, with making money, so that, God willing, when I come of that age, I don't have to rely on the almighty government to provide for me. That's a wonderful reality to live in, Sam, that you don't have to rely on. And even when it's not something nefarious, which I don't think it is with Trump in this case. I think he really just genuinely wants drugs to be cheaper in the United States. That doesn't mean all your ideas are actually good ideas. That's right. They might be good on paper, but in the end, I don't know, price controls tend not to work out. Actually, they never work out. I think it might be in the history of our country, certainly in the last 100 years, the wisest words potentially ever uttered by a president were Ronald Reagan. And Reagan understood. He had a good he had really good self-reflection to be able to say, listen, if someone says I'm from the government and I'm here to help, your first response should be distrust. It always should be. And he was someone who was in the highest position of government, folks, and he knew it. So good to keep that in mind here. The markets, let's take a look quickly here. So yesterday, following Monday's big finish, the major indices entered Tuesday with relative uncertainty, so-so economic data, tariff uncertainty, all that was playing into it. Averages were down by midday, same with late afternoon. The Dow Jones was flirting with the flat line, but not really for the other two. And by closing bell, they all finished below it. The Dow Jones was only down about 0.1%. The S&P down 0.5%. The NASDAQ down 0.2%. The markets this morning, as they've now opened, they're open in mixed territory. So the Dow Jones just below the flat line, S&P 500 is just above, and the NASDAQ is 0.25% above the flat line. Got a couple big earnings reports here. Uber beat on revenue. Disney topped expectations. So those were a couple of the big ones. I think there's one more bigger name.
McDonald's also beat expectations
McDonald's,
too.
Thank you, Sam. Yep, that's right. So those were some of the big ones there. All right, Sam, let's get to this question. So in the chat yesterday, Tucker from Alabama asked a really good question yesterday that I was hoping we could get to, but we just needed a little bit of time to kind of dissect it and sort of chew on it a little bit. So we've got Tucker's question here, and we're going to try to address it. Sam, what did Tucker say, just as a reminder?
So Tucker said, according to Inspire Insight, and for those of you who might not know, Inspire is a BRI screening tool, and he says, according to them, none of the Timothy ETFs are BRI. Inspire does not evaluate Timothy mutual funds, but we can also assume that they would also not approve of their mutual funds either. FISM, meanwhile, has even less stringent BRI standards than Timothy, so should we just make up our own BRI standards since there's so many different opinions on this?
Well, Tucker, thanks for asking, and I do appreciate that question. I appreciate the heart behind it. Let me quickly address your assumptions at the top, and then we'll tackle the actual question. So here's what I can tell you with that. If either of the screening tools you mentioned screens Timothy funds as dirty, the reason for that is almost always as follows. And for our purposes, I can say it's pretty much always as follows. Timothy Plan periodically combs through these mutual funds, and that process can sometimes be time consuming. So you may see the mutual fund at any given particular moment in time as being screened and reallocated, and it might be screening dirty because the folks who are doing that screening are looking into those companies and weeding out the dirty ones that are part of those mutual funds. Sometimes even Timothy funds themselves will screen dirty on Timothy's own screening tool. That's not a problem. It's for this very reason. It's not because it's actually dirty. It's because the combing through process is happening at that moment. Chances are, if you go back and look sometime later, sometimes in a few weeks or a few months, or whenever Timothy's completed that periodic process of recombing, the funds will once again show up as clean because that screening process is complete and updated. That's almost always the case.
Right. And my understanding is that the way they do this, it's not like the second they find find something dirty in one of their mutual funds or ETFs, that they can just immediately fix that. They actually have to wait. I don't know if it's every 6 months or what it is, but they are on a timetable of when they update their ETFs and mutual funds.
Absolutely. So hopefully that can help clarify some things, Tucker. Now to your question, Inspire and Evaluator, they're two different screening tools that have the same end goal. Okay, they're fighting the same battle. They're on the same team. They're screening out companies for BRI purposes so that these companies can be biblically responsible, so that Christian investors like you and me can confidently, in our good conscience, put our money to work in these companies and not compromise our conscience, ultimately for the glory of God. So they're both fighting the same battle, but they might go about it in slightly different ways. Some people may think, and I'm guessing this might be where the heart behind your question here, some might think that's a bug. I tend to think it's more of a feature. I think it can be a really good feature. Think about it this way. Here at FISM, we do not have complete 100% perfect theological agreement across the non-essentials when it comes to theological distinctives. Sam and I are dear friends and brothers in Christ, and we disagree on certain theological distinctions. And we might disagree with Michael Cardinal and Elijah Kelly and Grant Ace on certain theological distinctions. The foundational things, though, we're aligned on. That's really important. If you go to a church, at a church, you're not going to find every single person there is going to be a full-on dispensationalist, premillennialist, historic, Arminian, so-and-so, this, that, or the other thing. There's going to be some differences here and there. But are they all Christians? Do they all believe the word of God? Do they believe that Christ died for their sins and rose from the dead? Those are the most important things. And at a good, faithful church, you will have people believing those foundational things, even if they disagree on some of them.
I might go as far to suggest a church might not be 100% healthy if everyone does agree on every single little thing.
Maybe they need to start having some conversations about different things. That's exactly right, Sam. I completely agree. We're united on what matters most. The point I'm trying to make there is Inspire and Evaluator are united on what matters most, being biblically responsible. I think the variations between the screening tools on those specifics can be a picture of this, and it's a good thing. It's good to have those varying perspectives. When you get down to the minutia of BRI, so long as you agree on the non-negotiables, and each of the parties you mentioned certainly does. So to answer your question, Tucker, I don't think that we should just make up our own BRI standards. I do think that it's best for you to follow the standard that we've set forth here at FISM. I wouldn't be telling you that on this show if I didn't think that. I might not even be working at this company if I didn't think that, for heaven's sakes. The FISM standard is based upon the scriptures. It's based upon the Bible. So is the Evaluator, so is the Inspire standard. We use wisdom from those two screening tools. We use a lot of wisdom from our analytic team, but ultimately we use the Word of God and the God-given intellect that He gives each one of us, since after all, this model is a DIY model. It is. That's part of what it is. It's baked into it. So if you're going to lean into the DIY part of it, that's fine, but you have to make sure your conscience is in line with the Word of God. Ultimately, the most important determiner of biblically responsible investing is the first part, the biblical part, the first name of it, biblically responsible investing. Not ethically responsible, not socially responsible. We are biblically responsible investors. That means the Word of God is our ultimate standard. And it's true for the ones that you mentioned there as well.
So, yeah, I would say everyone's trying their best. We all agree we don't want funds in LGBT supporting causes, abortion, things like that. But it's not like that there's a page in the back of your Bible that tells you exactly how to do this. It's not like here's step 1, step 2, step 3 of how you're going to evaluate each and every company, especially when there might be a gray area on a specific issue when it comes to what a company is doing. So I wouldn't be surprised that there are subtle variations in how these guys screen each other, because it does come up to a call that they have to make from time to time.
It is. Tucker, it's a great question, and I really appreciate you asking that. I think you're asking the right questions because I sense your heart behind that question is a genuine desire to be biblically responsible, and you're trying to figure out how to go about that. I think it's great. I hope this can encourage you, Tucker, and all of you as well as we close our show. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established." I want us to take that verse to heart. That's what we're trying to do here. We're providing you this multitude of counselors here when we're doing BRI investing. Folks, you need wisdom to do this well. You need wisdom in every area of your life, by the way, but especially when it comes to biblically responsible investing. An unwise person is not going to do it well. You need wisdom, and true wisdom only comes from God. if you have that wisdom, if you possess that wisdom, that in part, as this verse says, Proverbs 15:22 says, the multitude of counselors, wisdom is established. Good, faithful, godly counselors, you'll get wisdom. And as such, I think you'll do a great job. Hope that made sense, folks. Tucker, was a great question. I appreciate you asking, and I appreciate all of you joining us today. It was a busy show, but an enjoyable one for me, and I hope it was for you as well. And God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. Until then, make sure you check out the partner commentary. Make sure to act on yesterday's sell alert. And remember, everything you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with all of it. God bless.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.